Continuing in our unit on quadratic functions, we're going to learn another method today on how to solve quadratic functions. And the do now is going to help highlight that. So the do now is asking you to factor these three expressions. So hopefully you'll see that the first one you can factor by using dots. The second one you can factor by using I am. But the third one cannot be factored. And that's because there's nothing that multiplies to negative 16 and adds to negative 8. All right, your factors of 16 are 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. But to multiply to a negative, one has to be negative, one has to be a positive, and there's no combination that's going to get me there. Now, the point here today is the fact that I can't factor a polynomial doesn't mean it cannot be solved. And we're going to learn today and then tomorrow two techniques to solve quadratic equations when factoring is not a possibility. Okay? Now, to highlight that, what I want you to just do for a moment is if you multiply these out by using your FOIL technique, combining the like terms. If I do the same thing on the other side, what you'll see is I have in my final answers here what are called perfect square trinomials. And perfect square trinomials, you can rewrite this as a plus b squared, or this is a minus b squared, is a trinomial that can be factored into two equivalent binomials. Okay? And they would always be in the form of the two that are up here with the arrows. So in other words, if you took the coefficients of a and b and multiplied them by 2, that would be your middle term. Okay? So let's talk about, because what we're going to do is use this concept of perfect square trinomials to solve. But before that, let's just make sure we understand how to do this and how to create perfect square trinomials. What is the value, excuse me, of c so that x squared minus 16x plus c is a perfect square trinomial? Well, if you saw what we were doing before, 2 times the coefficient of x squared and the value of c gives me that middle term, or not the coefficients there, but 2 times some number gives me this 16. So what I'm going to do is I want to divide the 16 in half, okay, which gives me negative 8. So that means the value of a times b, because this middle term is 2ab. So if I divide this by 2, I've now found what a times b is, okay? And then what I want to do with this value is square it, and that would give me the c. So x squared minus 16x plus 64 creates a perfect square trinomial. Now, the reason it's worked so well is a is 1, okay? So in this example, 2 times 1 times what number gives me the negative 16? And that's the negative 8. And then I square that to get the value of c. Now, how can I confirm it? Well, this factors as x minus 8, x minus 8. Okay? Now, we're going to use this technique and follow the steps that we're going to go through to solve what we couldn't solve before because we couldn't factor. Okay? So, step 1, I'm going to rewrite this equation by isolating C. So C is going to go on the other side of my equal sign. I'll put different colors here so we see the different steps. Step 2. What I want to figure out is what value is going here to make this a perfect square trinomial. Okay? Well, I want to determine the value of C by using our little formula. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to take negative 8, divide it by 2, and square it. And so what does that give me? 16. Now, the fact that there's a 16 on the right side is merely a coincidence. Okay? Now, if I add 16 to this side, then I have to add 16 to this side. Otherwise, I don't keep my equation balanced. All right? Step 3. We have just created a perfect square trinomial on the left side. So I'm going to factor it. It's x minus 4 equals 32. So I factor my trinomial. Now, next step. Step 4. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Remember, if I had a very simple equation of x squared equals 16, I could just take the square root of both to get x is plus or minus 4. Well, that's kind of what we're going to do here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to factor. Well, what's the square root of x minus 4 squared? Just x minus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 32. Now, remember, we're always looking for two answers, and that's what the plus minus does. So step 5, I'm going to divide this into two parts. X minus 4 equals the square root of 32, and x minus 4 equals negative the square root of 32. You go to your calculator, you look up the square root of 32. We're going to take it out to the hundredths place. So x minus 4 is approximately 5.66. X minus 4 is approximately negative 5.66. I add 4 to both sides, and x is approximately 9.66. X is approximately negative 1.66. And those are my two answers. I will eventually show you how you can check this on the calculator. Okay? Now you'll see your answer are decimals. That shows you that you were not able to factor that. Because if you were able to factor this, you would have gotten integer values. All right, so let's take a second. So I have the equation. I want to isolate the 16. What do I need to put there to create a perfect square trinomial? It's going to be a plus 49. Okay, the most common mistake to be made is not adding the same number to both sides. This side factors. And I'm sorry. This should be a negative 16, positive 33. Okay, I'm going to take the square root. I divide this into two parts. .74. So x is approximately 12.74. X is approximately 1.26. Okay. All right. Next thing is that you will see how we can use this technique of completing the square to find the vertex. Just something I want you to be familiar with as you go on in your math career. Now, let's confirm what we expect the vertex to be. We expect the vertex to be negative b, which is 6, over 2 times 1, or x is equal to negative 3. So there's my axis of symmetry. I plug in negative 3 for x, and I get 9 minus 18 plus 8, or negative 1. So I'm expecting negative 3, negative 1 is my vertex. So now, let's do it by completing the square, because I don't have a perfect square trinomial. So, I have y equals x squared plus 6x plus 8. Right? And remember, what we're trying to do is find that minimum or maximum point. I want to subtract the 8, because I want to create a perfect square trinomial. Now I want to figure out what goes in there to make a perfect square. Well, hopefully you're saying, oh, it's 9. So now I'm going to add 9 to both sides. Now I have my perfect square. Just combining those like terms. My final step is to isolate the y. Just move this. And now, if you notice, I have two numbers down here. I have a positive 3 and a negative 1, or a minus 1. And the way we say that is the equation y equals x minus h squared plus k represents a parabola whose vertex is h, comma, k. Now what you have to be careful about is the sign for h is the opposite, because it says minus h. So if this is plus 3, it's minus a 3. And k is whatever the value it is. Okay? So the last thing we want to do is another example. Now, what's different here is I have 2x squared. Well, I don't want 2x squared. All right? Because that makes doing this process not fun. So I'm going to divide everybody by 2. Now I get a little dreaded fraction here. All right? I'm going to... Now, how do I find my term that's going to go in there? It's negative 3 over 2 squared, which is positive 9 fourths. Now, you might be saying, how the heck do I factor that? Well, hopefully you'll see that the term that's in here, all right, this term is what is one of the two factors, because I squared that to get that. So what is this in factored form? X minus 3 over 2 squared. Okay? I take the... Now, yes, this gets a little messy because it's fractions, but come on, we got to be able to deal with fractions. It's algebra 1. I take the square root of that, and I'm sorry, I have to add my 9 fourths here. And actually what I'll do is I'll get you what that equals. Negative 3 halves plus 9 fourths is negative 6 fourths plus 9 fourths, or positive 3 fourths. This number has to end up positive, otherwise I have a problem. So plus or minus the square root of 3 fourths. So x minus 3 halves, I'm going to divide this into 2, is equal to the square root of 3 fourths, and it's equal to negative the square root of 3 fourths. Now you're just down to doing numbers in your calculator. Okay? Obviously what's easier here is to change the 3 halves to 1 and 1.5, because we're going to punch into our calculator the square root of 3 fourths to get 866. So x is approximately 2.366. Don't worry, I will tell you what you need to round to on anything you do. and 0.634. Okay, so to summarize, this technique of completing the square is one of two strategies that you're going to learn for purposes of solving quadratic equations when you're going to be unable to use factoring to do them, solve them.